What's up, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. We're going over King Size Annual, The Avengers, issue number 10. First appearance of Rogue, written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Michael Golden, and inked by Armando Gil. So let's bust right into this issue now, see what it's all about. First off, very interesting cover. This cover actually has a little bit of criticism behind it because there's a lot going on. It's an interesting cover, but it doesn't really have anything to do with our first appearance character. It's like a collage, almost like an advertisement piece with that 10-speed racer, of course, across the top. Who won this thing? Who knows? But this cover gets a little bit of criticism, but it's also kind of iconic, easy to recognize, easy to spot in those long boxes or on that shelf, so at least it has that going for it. But one could only imagine what a proper, maybe first appearance cover would have looked like if we would have gotten it. So let's get into the story here and see what's going on. Man, there's a lot packed into this one issue. Of course, Chris Claremont is on the writing here, as we mentioned before, but we're going to start with this kind of eerie landscape in San Francisco. We're basically on the Golden Gate Bridge. Somebody has actually been started to plummet, presumably to their death right here, only to be saved at the last moment by Jessica Drew over here, the Spider-Woman. And we don't exactly know what is going on right here, but we do have her coming in at the last moment to save the day. And we're going to get into it a little bit more over here. It's not exactly an easy rescue either because there's not a lot of draft down there. She can't really glide her way to safety, and she ends up crashing into the water and having to swim essentially to shore before, like hypothermia cuts in and ends up taking them both out. But we actually do make it on sunset, beautiful coloring and everything right here to signify a passage of time, which I like that a lot with the clouds coming through, nice coloring and everything there. We're back over at the hospital to see who this Jane Doe is, because we are quite concerned about this woman that just assumingly was falling to her death, trying to find out more information about her, talking to the lieutenants, trying to figure out what is going on. Turns out that she was actually identified as Carol Susan Jane Danvers. So immediately the readers are trying to piece some stuff together. Where was Carol Danvers last seen? What was her situation? How could she possibly be this Jane Doe? We're going to unpack that here as we go through. She's actually been missing for about 6 months now, and we finally got caught back up with her. Really interesting bubble yum advertisement right here, telling you how to do some magic tricks with your bubble yum. I never did that, but let me know if you guys did. Of course, over here, Jessica Drew, being the fast-thinking superhero that she is, she actually contacts one person that might be able to help in a situation like this, which is actually Professor X, trying to jog her memory, trying to investigate, see if he can pull any memories out of her, get her back to her normal self. We're going to introduce him into this equation right now, but he's actually helping the X-Men right now fix the danger room because Kitty had a battle with the demon in past issues. Some stuff got destroyed. Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Wolverine are fixing some equipment inside of the lab, trying to get things back up in operational status, and they get some explosions and they get kind of sent back to step one with that, but everyone seems to be okay, and Professor X actually comes over to San Francisco and joins Spider-Woman and our Carol Danvers character here, trying to investigate her memories, see exactly what is going on, and if he can pull some kind of information about how she got into that current situation. And then we get introduced to her assailant here. Name is Rogue. So I believe this is the first panel that we see of Rogue right here. Very menacing, kind of like a witch looking thing. Has that iconic white streak in her hair, and she's got her hands out like she's an evil witch or something like that. So that is an interesting kind of like first cameo appearance right there. This book is actually set up into chapters. So that's the end of chapter 1. Chapter 2, we get a more proper introduction to Rogue in a battle right here with Captain America, essentially getting his ass kicked. And I like it says right here, this is Captain America, living legend of World War II, and he's seen better days, being thrown like through some stuff, through like a barn or a shed or something like that. And we actually get to see Rogue here with her classic accent and everything, kind of showcasing that the fact that she has stolen Carol Danvers' power. So she's essentially like a Miss Marvel kind of a character, super strength, everything like that. But her actual mutant ability is she can siphon the power of people through physical touch, like skin to skin contact. So she's already got Carol Danvers' power, and now she's about to absorb Captain America's power as well, just kind of adding to that arsenal. The difference being that she held on to Carol Danvers a little bit too long, absorbed her power too much, put Carol Danvers into like a coma-like state, and then she permanently has her powers here, so she readjusts for that, making sure that she doesn't basically kill Captain America and have his powers forever, only latching on for a few moments here. We get our Avengers all teaming up as well, just trying to get together, see what's going on, but we have Captain America basically thrown through the window, interrupting the party, and we have to figure out, what's wrong with Captain America, how to get in the situation, who's at fault here. Of course, would it be an Avengers event without some kind of Tony Stark action? No, it would not. Tony's in here working on some of his suits, doing what he can do just to, make those upgrades. And he gets the call in from Jarvis over here, from the Avengers, saying that Captain America was attacked. We don't exactly know from who or by who, and we need your assistance, so you need to get over here as soon as possible. Again, we get another set of ads to look at. I like all these little hand-drawn ads. Those are pretty awesome. But we're going to start off over here again. We have Tony Stark getting ready to go help out the Avengers, but he gets a strange notification that Yellow Jacket's here. Janet Pym is all of a sudden here to see what's going on, and he's a little bit confused by that, lets her down into the area, and he's actually incapacitated with some electronic device that basically turns his suit into a paperweight. He can't really do anything, but Janet Pym was actually Mystique in disguise. She transforms right here. I love it when they do these transformations where half the body is the one person and half is Mystique, showing you that transition into Mystique. And I'm loving that right there. It turns out Mystique is actually working for the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants again, and working with Rogue, her protege, it says, to neutralize Iron Man so they can proceed with Plan A, whatever that is. So again, we're back over here, touching base now with Thor, because Donald Blake was actually requested from the Avengers to help out. So Thor is coming onto the scene, arriving, transforming into his Donald Blake form. But as soon as he does that, he is attacked by somebody in the alleyway before he can go give some medical assistance. And it turns out that that person is Rogue here as well. Jessica Drew kind of being on to the routine right here. She's actually staking out some of these places just in case something like this happens, decides to intervene. This is the first time we've seen Spider-Woman take on Rogue at this moment. And, Spider-Woman's very agile, very quick, very formidable in her own sense, but not as tough as a Captain Marvel / Captain America combination kind of a hero. And so she is able to evade some of the attacks, but loses the upper hand rather quickly. And I like this scene here where Thor actually comes back into the play after retransforming back from Donald Blake back into Thor, thinking, hey, I got you, you're not going anywhere. But she's able to touch his face right here, absorb some of his Asgardian powers, and she's essentially unstoppable at this point, even taking a Venom Blast directly, and nothing is even affecting Rogue in the scene here. With all the commotion outside, some of the Avengers come out, including Vision. Vision goes up to try to stop her, and her super strength is magnified so much that she just basically clocks out Vision right here, slamming his head into the ground. I love this panel right here as we're seeing this progression and more heroes are joining the battle. Just one punch while she's holding Thor up into the air knocks Vision through the concrete floor. I thought that was really amazing what they decided to do there with that one. And then we have Wonder Man coming into the fray as well, taking her with a shoulder charge with basically no effect at all, grabbing him by the throat. She can't absorb his power just because of the nature of his anatomy and everything. And so that was pretty cool. He is essentially immune to her power sucking ability, which I thought was pretty cool. She's getting a little bit outnumbered here, decides to leave after more and more heroes decide to show up. And we have another reconvening moment over here, starting chapter 3. Going into this big explanation about, where has she been for the last 6 months? Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, vanished simultaneously from New York 3 months ago, according to the lieutenant, and surfaced in San Francisco. Apparently that's when Rogue decided to come back and maybe finish the job or tried to kill her. So they're going over why, what's going on, where has she been lately, what has been happening? And Scarlet Witch actually chimes in here that something was going on with Carol Danvers before, where essentially she was not pregnant and then pregnant all of a sudden, and then less than 100 hours she carried a baby to full term and gave birth to a son. Now it goes into some other history right here about her relationship with Marcus, and the father was Immortus and all this stuff, god-like time traveler who aided the Avengers on occasion. Marcus had originally been born and had lived his life in Immortus's domain, Limbo. So it goes over a little history here in case you didn't know about the relationship between Miss Marvel, Carol Danvers, and this lover that she apparently fell for, but we're going to learn a little bit more detail about that in the later issue. So we're going to continue on over here, going into some more history here from Hawkeye's perspective, but Marcus was still in limbo, and his very presence on Earth disrupted the local time stream. He had crazies popping out the wazoo, dinosaurs, spaceship, knights in armor, the works. While we fought them, Marcus was in the lab building a machine he said would save the day. None of us trusted him, but it happened so fast. There was no time to get a handle on things. To me, it looked like Marcus was the bad guy for playing us for suckers, so I destroyed his time machine by my mistake. Without the time machine, he couldn't stay on Earth and return to limbo forever. Then they go on about how Carol was obsessed with him, offering to join him, being in love with him from the start. And it was partly why he came to Earth to be with her, and she had fallen in love with him. Thor opened the dimensional portal and with his hammer, and the way they went off to live happily ever after. This was actually covered in Avengers 197 through 200. So we get our little recap here about exactly what was going on over there. We touch base with Beast, our resident doctor on the scene here. He's going over how, she didn't really hold on to Captain as long as some other people, so they should be recovering from their battle here very soon. But, she's absorbed some of their powers. And any idea where Iron Man is, we fear the worst because, man, he should be here any second now, and he's not, so we get to see what's going on. So that is the end of chapter number 3. Chapter number 4 starts over in Rikers Island at midnight. We basically have a prison break situation right here. We have Destiny, who looks very different than the Destiny that we see in today's X-Men book. She's actually held up inside this prison, along with a lot of other members of, the Brotherhood and whatnot. And the idea here is that Iron Man is essentially a bomb. He's essentially like a big torpedo missile that can be used to help shut down this power grid that's holding all these prisoners in their various cells. So he's actually dropped from this plane or something like that, helpless, right into the power source, disabling the power source, letting the different mutants escape their cells with the goal of getting some of these people and Destiny back on the team. So that's exactly what happens here. I thought this was a clever use of Tony Stark. It's like you could just drop a missile, but you essentially have this iron missile that you could just drop from the sky right here, disabling the power system as he goes. So we get our classic team put back together over here. Of course, we have like Blob and Pyro and whatnot in here. And then we have Destiny in her more classic appearance that we know and love today. And so they're actually kind of putting their forces back together, gearing back up to cause more mayhem. And this is where the Avengers assemble, jumping out of their plane, going for the attack. But now they know, like, listen, we could barely take on Rogue when she was by herself. Now we have Mystique and the other Brotherhood as well. This is going to be a very difficult battle. And that's what we see in the next few pages over here. Some really cool things going on. Again, that shape shifting in between the two different characters. We have Mystique over here talking with Destiny about, control your emotions, do what I say. We're going to get through this battle because I have this precognition ability. I can see things before they happen, or I know the odds, or I can see the different options ahead of us and the futures that they bring. And so if you just follow my lead, Brotherhood, you'll be fine through this battle. And that's exactly what happens over here. So again, following their lead, setting up some different traps, which I think is cool, knocking some people through buildings, seemingly just to incapacitate them, but it's setting up a chain reaction, which is going to play out through the rest of these pages. And so we get to see exactly what's going to happen over here. Even Beast, thinking he has the upper hand, taking kind of like a random approach to this battle, he even gets incapacitated as well when this building that we saw earlier starts to fall and collapse, something that Beast couldn't have predicted, but only Destiny could have seen coming. We have a really cool showcase of power right here between Vision and the Blob. Vision can change the density of his molecules and actually put his fist through you, causing excruciating pain, but the Blob has such a weird density property already that it's really ineffective for him, and that's when Rogue comes in and decides to take him out as well. Hawkeye doing some cool stuff, showcasing some of his power, basically sets up a flashbang, disorienting everybody over here, but not before he gets caught up in Avalanche's wake of debris. So it's a really cool showcase of powers. I really like this scene right here. And Destiny over here basically telling the team right here that everything is okay. The critical element lies within the prison where Spider-Woman seeks Iron Man. She must not be allowed to restore his power. Help Mystique find her, Rogue. Slay her, or we are lost. So pretty cool little moment right there, again showcasing her power. We have Spider-Woman finding Tony. Again, he's essentially a paperweight because his powers have been nullified, but hey, look, we got Nick Fury here to save the day. What do you know? What are the odds that Nick Fury would show up? But of course, Iron Man and Spider-Woman being on to Mystique's shenanigans and whatnot. They don't exactly trust her, and they get the upper hand on her, dodging all of her attacks, shooting her Venom Strike out, essentially forcing Mystique back and giving Tony a much needed boost to his power, putting him back into the game so he can give Rogue a little taste of her own medicine right there. Now, her powers are wearing off a little bit because she didn't suck enough energy off of those other mutants, but she's still very powerful in her own sense, but not as powerful as the Scarlet Witch comes in here, and she basically creates this hexed sphere, she calls it, where anything can happen. It's extremely unstable. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. So it really disrupts a lot of the mutants' powers, things like that, because it's such a huge unpredictability field. And again, we have a weakening of Rogue over here while she's fighting Spider-Woman. We have her getting shot by blasts from Tony Stark, things like that. And we have this moment where we're realizing that the Avengers are starting to get the upper hand. She doesn't have enough raw power to deal with Iron Man at this moment. And she notices the other members of her team of the Brotherhood are starting to run away, saying, listen, we're going to win this fight one day, but not today. We got to get together. We got to figure out what's going on, and we can come back and take on the Avengers at some other point. Of course, hopping in that plane, they have some kind of stealth tech, and they do get away, and our heroes get back together to see what they can do about this massive, awesome panel right here that Scarlet Witch has essentially created this gigantic anomaly they have to deal with. Now, we have Pyro in here as well, participating in this, creating this gigantic like fire serpent, and then Scarlet Witch is doing her best to control the flames as well, basically resulting in these two creatures intertwined together, trying to take each other out. This is a really amazing panel right here. I love the perspective and the shot and everything. This must have been a blast to actually put together. But teaming up with Tony, Scarlet Witch ends up taking out this big monster that Pyro has helped create, and Hawkeye delivering the final blow, knocking him unconscious and essentially putting out all the fire and destruction and saving the heroes from all the different situations that they were in before. So our heroes are trying to get things back together, even using Beast as a missile of sorts like Tony was earlier in the day, and taking out Avalanche, and Vision properly using his powers against Blob this time after he learned a few lessons. And then, of course, Vision getting some of his eye blasts right into Blob's face, taking him out as well. So we basically have our villains taken care of in this scene, and we have some final resolution here with Blob. And then we have our chapter 5 starting over here. This is where things get a little bit personal, a little bit dark, because basically it's like, okay, we're all sitting by the pool. Wolverine's got several beers cans laying around. He's got his cigarette. He's got his classic hat. Everyone's in swimsuit attire, looking great. And they're talking about what exactly has been going on over here. And they're saying, Carol, oh my God, I'm so glad you're feeling better. You're okay. You remember who you are. You can stay if you want to. But she actually has a really deep, terrifying secret to release right here. She actually reveals here that she's gotten most of her memories back, but not all of them, and that Marcus is actually dead, the person that she went to go live with. And the Avengers were like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you went through this loss and everything. And they were expecting her to be in some kind of a grieving process, but she was actually mad at the Avengers because she yells here, I didn't love Marcus. I never loved Marcus. Don't any of you realize what happened months ago, what Marcus did to me? And she actually goes into an explanation here, which is pretty intense, basically saying in Limbo, his every wish was granted. He saw me, desired me, and used me as a means to escape Limbo to Earth. And when that plan failed, he took me back with him. You saw it happen, Hawkeye, you Iron Man, you Thor, you heard the stories. Marcus said that Immortus's devices could bend me to his will, but he didn't want it that way. He set out to win my love, and finally, as he told you, with a subtle boost from Immortus's machine, he succeeded. So there's a little bit of mind manipulation here. It's not exactly the fairy tale story that we all heard about in the previous issues. And so she was really upset with the Avengers, with the different teams, that they didn't see through his evil plans. She was manipulated and she was used. And that's why she lost so much time. And she has a lot of pain and regret and sorrow and just anger towards the Avengers, towards everybody, that they kind of let this situation happen. Even if going through like hard times results in you thinking you need to do better, hopefully you'll do better in that moment. And so that's kind of where we end up with this team right here with Captain Marvel. Of course, we get a couple of ads to round things out. And she goes on to saying, basically, I'm going to pick up my pieces of my life, start again, and survive. It's what I'm good at. Then later aboard the Quinjet en route back to Manhattan, Scarlet Witch actually talks about this could have very well have been me, talking to Vision about, man, I can't believe that we didn't see these kinds of things coming. We definitely owe it to her. We need to stay as safe as possible. and that even someone as powerful as her is still vulnerable, and she's my friend Vision, and I failed her. And that's the realization that everyone is facing right now, that we've been given a second chance. Carol has been given a second chance, so let's use it well. The end. So really emotional impact at the end of this book, especially after you realize the confession that Carol gave about the situation she was in. So this book went all over the place. Let's talk about the key elements of this book again, it being Rogue. She was very formidable in this issue, taking on several of the strongest members of the X-Men and the Avengers, things like that, siphoning a lot of their powers, using that combination of powers to her advantage, certainly taking out Vision and many other members of the X-Men in here. I do like that we saw a lot of people from the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. We got some Destiny in here. We had Blob, we had Pyro, we had Avalanche, and so on and so forth. And it was just a really cool scene right here. I like the flow of the book as well. It had a chapter feel, and then each chapter felt like it went on forever. I was just eating this up as I was reading it. So it was a pretty decent first appearance of a new main character. Now, in the later runs, we actually see Rogue join the X-Men, obviously, and her character gets changed a little bit. And you know this if you've seen like the X-Men Animated Adventures, and you've seen some of the more modernized versions of the X-Men. So it's a pretty cool book overall. Interesting key book, one that everybody can instantly recognize, I think. Let me know down below your experiences with Rogue, your experience with this comic in particular. What'd you guys think of this first appearance flip through? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, share, hit that bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out a video. See y'all in the comments.